All right, hello everybody. It is June and this is our monthly idea share. My name is Beth Golick from Key Ministry and I'm joined by my colleague Catherine Boyle. She's here for me. And she's our Director of Mental Health Ministry. So these discussions are really just a chance for us to check in with each other, ask questions, encourage each other, do a little brainstorming. So I will open it up. What's going on in your neck of the woods? What great things are you working on? Where are you struggling? How can we encourage each other? Who would like to start? Yay, I was hoping Julie would raise her hand. All right, Julie, go for it.
Okay, so we've had the wonderful opportunity for the last 5 weeks, and we have one more week to teach the class where our adults with disabilities are congregating on Sunday mornings. And it has been a wonderful time. There's probably about maybe 15 to 20 maybe people in the room. So it's a good group. And we've just loved watching them love on each other and have their own little friendship thing going on. And that's been really precious. But here's what we would love to brainstorm about. We have the opportunity, we think we have the opportunity to influence the next steps for them. We just jumped in. They were having a changing of the guard. The person that was leading them was leaving, and they just really didn't have anybody. And so we were reached out to and asked if we would consider doing something, maybe for a week or two. So we decided to take one of Ryan Wolf's ability ministry lessons, and we said, okay, we're going to give you 6 weeks. And that will give you a little bit more time to find somebody else to lead the class, because we have other commitments on Sunday mornings. But I don't think they have somebody else yet. But here's what we want to do. We have the opportunity to influence what next steps could be for this class. And one of the things that we really want to really teach others, not them, because they already know what their gifts are, is how they can use their gifts in this class. So we'll start there in the class with each other. How can they love each other? There's a little bit of a protocol. They start out with taking prayer requests, which can become the whole lesson, but we try not to let that happen. And we move on to the Word of God. And then they like to play bingo at the end. So those are really the only things that they are counting on every single week when they come. And so we have a chance to draw them in. So one of the young men in the class actually taught one of the David lessons that we were, that the series that we're doing right now. And he did just one lesson his own way. He didn't use the curriculum. He used it his own way. We were blown away with his teaching. And we know that there is untapped potential in every single person that's in that room. So I'm going to get teary because this is such a fantastic opportunity for us. But we would love to brainstorm with you guys about how can we help them in the class. And really it would be us teaching the person who is kind of corralling them on Sunday morning that is committed to being there. She's not a teacher. She won't teach, but she and her daughter, who is in college, will come and they love the class. So that's very helpful. But we have an opportunity to really speak into their hearts, opportunities for these people, these wonderful people, to be able to use their gifts. So that's kind of what we wanted to put on the table. If you guys are willing to jump in and give us some ideas, we would love that.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So I love this. So what I'm hearing, first of all, the Meekins, I don't want to say took advantage, but they found an opportunity. They seized an opportunity. How about that?
Good. Yes.
Seized an opportunity to create this like community, a time of gathering. And I love that you kind of equipped yourselves with some of the things that we've talked about here. Like you said, you use Ability Ministries curriculum, and that you are encouraging and supporting the participants to use their gifts.
Yes.
So one of the really cool things I'm sensing from this is you have a really cool story to share now about how these individuals are using their gifts to serve in such a meaningful way. And how cool for your church leadership to hear about that, and the congregation, and for all of us to hear that and, really take that to heart. So, folks, let's brainstorm with Tom and Julie. What are you hearing? What are some ideas you have, so they can kind of continue this momentum that started? And Catherine is sharing in the chat that we, meaning Key Ministry, would love to have you write a guest blog post about this, as this develops. So I second that motion. All right, anybody have anything to share? Go ahead and raise your hand or unmute. Is everybody being shy today? Oh, Linda raised her hand. Where's Linda? Linda, yay.
Hi, so we are preparing to do our first Access Ministry camp with 80 some Ukrainian orphans with disabilities in July. And my sister and my two nieces are going. One niece is adopted from Ukraine in 2011. So she's kind of go back. She was served and now she's serving. And then we do have a smaller team than we thought we would, but it's understandable because it was quick turnaround on this thing. The other thing is I have been invited to speak to women that have been rescued off the red light district in Amsterdam. And I was showing my friend who runs this organization, this mental health journal I was making that's has biblical references in it. I don't necessarily use something like this. And she's like, that would be awesome for these girls. So we've been working on it, tweaking it. I saw her Saturday and I said, I think this needs to just be a 30-day walk, because if we give them something for a whole year, it's going to overwhelm them. Mm-hmm. So I'm working on finalizing the 30-day walk. A lot of the verses around how you're wonderfully made. And I'm going to format it to be printed in Europe. And because that's A4 paper, we're doing it like a letter size book, because we're putting scripture coloring pages in it that will be perforated, that they can pull that out and put that on the wall. And I'm also getting them coloring pencils. But we're working on that now, and it will all be translated into, I'm hoping to get coloring pages that I can manipulate in InDesign or something, so that I can put it in Ukrainian or Romanian, because that's what mostly these girls are. So she's been working with a local church there. A gentleman relocated, he worked for FedEx, and him and his wife do the outreach to these women. And it's pretty crazy what goes on there, And so I will actually be there in October with my friend on the back end of another trip, or at the beginning. I haven't figured that out. But yeah, it's like a big deal, this camp in Germany. Hopefully everything. My other niece has got celiac, and the leader wanted to use Play-Doh, and I'm like, I have to find Play-Doh that doesn't have wheat in it.
Yes, you can make your own.
Oh, I have a friend that's there that's American, and her daughter has celiac issues. So she found me some German product, because they actually have an institution that verifies this is completely properly for celiac people, because that's a problem in America. Mm-hmm. So we're just ordering it. It's like 11 euros for 4 containers. And I'm like, well, that's not a bad price. Could you send it to Zoriana? So I have to go to Stuttgart to pick this up. So my friend that's leading it, she's like, I didn't realize they can't touch it either. It's very complicated. So I got that resolved, and I'm like, my sister's covering the cost for it, because she knows it's just a problem. So yeah, so we did have that little hiccup. It's like, oh, Play-Doh, and it's hard to get that in Europe because it looks like C4. So
oh gosh. there's a problem. I didn't think that they'd be dealing with a disability ministry.
They'd like you. It's better to find it there or make it, because my sister's the guy's like, I don't care. I have to throw this out. We
So for
can't-
those who don't know, Linda is, so her website, I guess, or social handle or whatever you would call it, is Abnormal Missionary. And so she is going on these overseas mission trips. And it's just incredible. So I do encourage you to, follow what she's doing. That sounds like a pretty extensive project that you're working on.
Yeah, this will be I don't know how many times I've been on mission trips since 2010. It's like 30 or 40 plus. I just wrote a blog piece about challenging verses for people with mental health issues, which is being called to serve, and how the Great Commission is not qualified who you give it to or who participates in it. And we forget that. And God calls us all to participate in the mission. Some people, we're all called to pray. Some people are called to be in field, and some people are called to be supporters.
Mhm.
And we can't qualify that. God qualifies that. So it's like, how do we equip more people like me? It's not that difficult, actually. I mean, you would think somebody with Asperger's would travel well to Ukraine 30 plus times. But actually, my experience of being in a mental institution prepared me to sleep in a bedroom at an orphanage. So that's saying something about the state of our institutions.
Yeah. So I love this, Linda. Thank you for sharing your experience. So we have a couple hands raised, so I want to move on. But so now we have two different topics that we've brought up so far that are both about individuals with disabilities serving. And so I think this is a great topic for us today. So Haley, I lost you. Haley had a hand raised, and I think then Melissa had a hand raised, and Catherine shared in the chat what you're doing with your gifts is a great example for others. I agree. So Haley, if you could unmute and share, please, and then we'll get to you, Melissa.
Hi. Good morning.
Hey.
I guess good morning for me. I'm in California. But Tom and Julie, I'm not sure I'm understanding exactly what you're doing, but if I do, it might be helpful to find ways for them to serve in the church, like alongside people without disabilities, like integrating them in the larger body so that other people can see, like, we're not just here to serve people with disabilities, but like they can serve us and the greater community. And then also just interacting with them. I think before I was in disability ministry, it wasn't really on my radar because I didn't think it was like that big of a population, and I didn't know how to interact with people with disabilities. So maybe something like just serving alongside, finding ways for them to serve in different ways so they can figure out what they're good at, and then other people can see what they're good at too. Because sometimes they have giftings just like anyone, and so like they're gifted in things that we're not, and we're gifted at things that they're not. Just a thought.
Thank
you for that, Haley. And that probably is like the second step after the first step. So we first have to work with them in the classroom because we're going to show the gifts that they have. And so then we can help the congregation and the leaders in the congregation to know that they do have these gifts. And so I love that, Haley, because that is definitely where we're headed. And I appreciate you sharing that.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, Melissa.
Well, hey, everybody. It's been a while. I'm sorry. It's been a little crazy around here. Tom and Julie, I love what you're doing. I had the honor and privilege of being in Tim Keller's church for 8 years when we lived in New York City. And I volunteered a lot in the office, and I got to know him on a very personal level. And I was a scripture reader. I don't know what tradition everybody is from, but in the PCA and the Anglican tradition, they use lay people to read scripture during church. I am a wheelchair user, and it was really exciting to be the only non-trained actor on the reading train. Now, the people that I read with at Redeemer were people that were on Broadway, and Max McClain of Screwtape runs the team. And so it's like, talk about intimidated. And so I say all that to say this: encourage their gifts. Scripture reading is a particular form of worship for me, and I love it. I also love to read aloud, but the most I'd ever been allowed to do is read stories to kids in libraries. And my husband, who we'd been married maybe a year and a half when we started attending Redeemer, and he just championed me. He said, "Babe, you are as talented at reading aloud as anybody that's been on that platform. Go." So I went to Max and I said, "Max, I really would like to audition for the readers team." And he said, "All right." He said, "Next week, be ready." And he said, "Here's your passage." And he said he had me audition for him, and he said, "We're doing this." And he said, "Tim wants diversity on that platform, and he wants diversity of ability on that platform." And he said, "We've just not had anybody with a visible disability that wanted to participate as a reader." Well, the first one, I'd been reading for a couple of months, and my wheelchair was in the shop, and I had an unfamiliar wheelchair. And the way that the platform is situated, Tim would speak. I'm looking at the audience this way. Tim would speak from stage left. I would read from the center, and then everything else happened at the right, but I couldn't get to the podium on the right. So I just read from the center with a headset. One Sunday morning, I'm in a loaner chair, and the wire that connects everything came undone while I was reading, and I didn't know it. And I'm reading and reading and reading and reading. And then Tim gets up and starts to preach, and he's halfway through his first point, and I'm still sitting on the platform. And Tim is very cerebral, and he just kind of looked over, and I'm making eye contact with my husband, like, what do I do? And then I realized what the problem was, fixed it, and very discreetly rolled off the stage. And Tim came to me afterwards. He said, "Listen," he said, "you're going to catch all kinds of crap for this morning. But," he said, "I know that it was not your fault." And he said, "I've got your back. Don't worry about it." And he said, "I'm going to actually use it as a sermon illustration next week about what happens when things don't go according to plan." And he said, "I've been looking for a timely thing." And he said, "I'm going to use that next week. Is that okay with you?" And I said, "Sure." He said, "Just don't have a command performance next week of this same thing." And I just started laughing. But this is what we need to teach the church, is that it doesn't have to be polished and pretty to be an act of worship. And sometimes the more raw it is, the more worshipful it is. And Linda, to your point about being a missionary with a disability, my mom felt called to be a missionary after my dad died, and I was 5, and at the time was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. That diagnosis has since changed, but no mission board would take her because she was a widow with a child with a disability. And I have to wonder how many opportunities are being lost, because for me, going to Israel opened a door for medical treatment that I didn't have open to, and a door for inclusion that in the 70s, kids like me were still being put in self-contained classrooms, even though I was reading on an 8th grade level in 1st grade. Because I had a disability, I was going to be put in a self-contained classroom. In Israel, the answer was, "Oh, well, you know what? We'll just carry her around." And my 4th and 5th grade classmates made the chairs or piggybacked me or did, one really resourceful young man built a pony cart for me. And it was like I had my own chariot. And when I came back to the States, getting to share this with churches and things was an amazing eye-opener. There were people who said to my mother, "Well, because you're a widow and you have this child with all these needs, you really should have stayed home." I come from a very long line of very independent-minded women. God help us all for that fact, but on both sides of the family. And Mom just looked at him and said, "That's interesting. God didn't call me to stay at home." And the Great Commission qualifies the call, regardless of all the periphery. And whenever I have a chance to talk about pro-life issues from cradle to grave at churches, that's one of the things that I talk about, is that the Great Commission means that every life has a purpose, and that purpose is ultimately to glorify God. So anyway, I have one last thing, and then I'll hush and let everybody talk. At the National Center for Public Policy Research, the Able Americans Project, we are developing an app that what it will be is that you will put in your zip code and your need for your specific disability and everything within 100 miles that meets that need will pop up. So I would love to, I'll put our website in the chat, and I'll put my email in the chat. I would love to hear from you some things that you need in disability ministry, things that your people in your ministry need. And we want to include that. We want to have a whole thing about, faith-based organizations and churches and synagogues that minister to people with disabilities. So.
Okay. Wow, Melissa, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Sorry if I
that's awesome. Okay. So, when Melissa shares the link in the chat, so we will, when we post this recording on the Key Ministry website, we will include links such as the link to abnormalmissionary.org that Linda just shared. We will share the link to the resource to the National Center for Public Policy Research, the Able Americans Project, is that what you would call it, project? As they're developing this clearinghouse, maybe, is that the right word? So that we can all kind of speak into that and help them populate to make that a better resource for, I guess, is it to connect individuals with disabilities to resources in their geographic area? Is that kind of what this is? Okay, great.
Well, because what we're finding, what I'm spending, I'm going to be really honest with you guys. I am building an airplane in flight with this policy arm that we're standing up. And it's the first time since the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act that somebody from right of center has said, wait a minute, community needs to reestablish, the faith-based community and the local community need to reestablish their caring for people with disabilities instead of the government doing everything. So that is what I'm doing. And the idea behind the app is, I started getting all these phone calls when I started going on programs that went viral and national and doing interviews. They were like, well, I need a sitter. I need resources for my child with Down syndrome. I need resources I need it now. And because I had been the commissioner of the Administration on Disability under President Trump, I knew where to find a lot of that. But it's breadcrumby. Y'all know this because this is what you do. Everything disability is breadcrumby. You look over here and maybe that'll lead you over here. And it depends on who you can connect with as to what you find out. Why not have one specific place where we can have it all and you can download it right to your phone, right to your tablet, and be able to just get what you need immediately, whether it's medical care, a sitter, respite care, or even a parental support group or a support group, peer support group. There is no end to what we're going to do with this. There's no limit to what we're going to do with this. And I am hoping to put together a SurveyMonkey survey that can be sent out through the ministries to people with disabilities, through the Centers for Independent Living, that sort of thing. But it's a clearinghouse, but it's also immediate assistance for what you need. Because I mean, y'all know, and I know that the arena that God has called us all to, whether from having a disability or from ministering to people with disabilities, those needs can be really immediate. I am heartbroken at an incident that I heard about on Easter Sunday. Someone that I know who has a son who has very significant autism went to church and was asked to leave because his son vocalized during church. And the people that they have coming in to do the training know nothing about autism. Okay, thank you, Thomas, for that. I will try to figure out what the problem is and repost it. Apparently the website that I typed in is not correct. So let me find out. Oh, it's nationalcenter.org. That's the problem. Okay, so yes, that is the auto redirect is correct.
Okay. So when we grab it, we'll make sure we grab the correct link.
No, it's not, and that's not right either. So let me
Okay.
get it.
All
Okay.
right. All right. Wow. Lots of good information. All right, Al, let's hear from Al in Paris.
Yeah, bonjour. I've been in France the last 2.5 weeks. I just have 3 more days. I'm kind of sad to leave. It's been great being back home after 8 years. I was here 20 years as a missionary, and it's been awesome being back. But I've discovered there's very limited resources for people with disabilities here, especially on the church front. So there's a lady, a British lady named Catherine, and she's been my guide kind of to some meetings. And so, yeah, it's been helpful. We went to one meeting with 4 people at a camp in Grenoble that are looking to do disability stuff at their camp. So that's really cool, but there's not that much of that happening in France. Last weekend, we went to an autism weekend for people affected more with high functioning, more Asperger's-ish, stuff like that. And there were 30 of us there, which was great, but it's like a drop in the bucket with all the autism here. And I was at another camp the last couple of days. We're looking at doing family camps, maybe Johnny and Friends style-ish there, but there's really not that happening here either. So there's not that much going. So it's interesting coming in after all these with Key Ministry and other groups I'm connected with, a lot of resources that are out there, things like that, that could be really good over here, but just there's not a whole lot of infrastructure right now. So yeah, there's certainly, there'll be a lot of discussion going forward. My first 2 weeks were organized. The last weeks have been discussions out of the first 2 weeks, like all of a sudden, well, you should talk to this person and this person, this person. So there's some influential pastors and others like that I'm connecting with and things like that. But I guess coming in from the outside, I'm a little bit shaking things up a tiny bit. So that's hopefully things will move forward. But yeah, I'm really thankful for Key Ministry and all the brilliant resources I've gotten over the years, and other ministries like Johnny and Friends and all that too, which could be really helpful here. But there's just not that much structure going in right now. So a lot of it's building from ground zero, or not too much, but there's a lot to do here.
Yeah,
and my French has come back, fortunately, so I'm glad to be able to speak French here. Makes it a lot easier as well.
Yeah, it's been incredible to watch, watch through your social media. It's been incredible to watch you putting all these resources and the networking that you've done, putting that into action, taking that with you. So yes, and as Thomas shared, you bring a holy disruption to the status quo, which is much needed. That's so cool. So are you like, you're back to being totally fluent?
Yeah, I mean, I was here 20 years. So yeah, it's come back very fast. I mean, certainly it's not all correct, I think, but they're very gracious. And yeah, I gave a testimony in church yesterday at a French church, and it seemed to go okay, all in French. So I'm in a lot of discussions in French too. So at least they're patient with my French. And I think I understand almost everything. I think I'm mostly clear in what I'm saying, hopefully. I guess I'll hear if I'm not. Some of the gaffes I've done, but overall it's going pretty well.
That's great. That's great. And how many more days until you come back to the
I leave
US?
on Thursday, so
Okay.
I got 2 more days.
Okay.
Yeah, in our neighborhood, it's been great. I mean, apparently they loved us here, so getting invited out all the time, and my wife's getting invited for the next trip and all that. So yeah, we were just amazing when you come back after so long. The connections you still have.
Yeah, that's so cool. So how fantastic is it that even just in this little group, we have 2 international missionaries with us today. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing. All right, who else has something to share or ask or contribute? Yes, Colton.
Hey everybody, I'm kind of new. I've been watching the roundtable discussions through video for a while. I am an occupational therapy student from Arkansas, and I'm not a church leader, so I'm a little bit different. My purpose is to do a research study and also develop a resource guide that's very practical and hands-on for churches in my area. So the research study is kind of two sides of the same coin. I'm interviewing people with special needs or disabilities, and I'm asking them about their experiences in church. I'm also asking caregivers or parents about their experiences in church. And then I'm also asking faith leaders what their experiences have been and their struggles in trying to lead a church in this direction. Because I know a lot of churches, I think, really want to help, but they don't have the knowledge or the resources to do it. And I think that's part of where the disconnect is, or at least down here in my area. So I was just going to ask if anybody had just informally any advice for new churches trying to come up with special needs ministries, or even just your own personal struggles or your own personal successes, things like that, that I could maybe speak to.
Yeah, so I'm so glad that you've joined us. So thank you for watching online before and being here with us today. Are you looking to talk to churches in your geographic area, or are you interviewing people outside of your geographic area?
So the way my interviews are set up through my university is I have to interview people in my area. Now I am interviewing any religion, which has been kind of eye-opening and interesting. I'm going to be interviewing a rabbi later today. So that would be cool to just kind of see how different it is in different sections. But I have talked to a lot of just like pastors in our area about their experiences informally. But I'm hoping to kind of get that nailed down as like a research thing. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, well, I guess my part two of the question is, have you connected yet with 99 Balloons?
I have not, but that name sounds familiar.
Yes, so I would suggest connecting with them because they are really networked with churches in that geographic area. So I think they would be a fantastic resource for you.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure it's 99balloons.org. And Alice nodding yes. We'll say
Thank
yes. Very cool. You'll have to keep us posted on that.
Hey, Colton, one thing that you might look up is an organization called Respectability. And they are, the founder is Jewish. They work primarily with Jewish people with disabilities, and they might be able to help you with finding some other rabbis and Jewish people in your area to talk to. I'm really glad that you're going outside of evangelical circles, because I think it's, as you said, it's eye-opening. And also, I sent you my email address. I would love to help you with whatever you're working on.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think, you know, when I was doing this initially, I am, you know, obviously I'm focused on my faith because that's the most important to me. And around here, it's mostly Christian churches. It's actually pretty hard to find other religions around here. So it is interesting to be able to hear what other people do, even sort of the background about what they think about disability is different sometimes. You know, the further you get away from Judeo-Christian ideas. So that's been really interesting just to learn about those kinds of things. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I love the networking in this group.
I didn't catch where he's from.
All right. Who else would like to share something? I'll share something that our church is going to be doing later this month. So we have always done a, sorry, I just looked at the chat and I thought you were asking, where is Arkansas instead of where in Arkansas? Okay, I was like, we're not going to cover that. We do respite events at our church, and many of you are familiar with respite events and have been doing them. We've decided to do something different. We're still doing respite events, but we're actually capping the age of our guests to 14 and under and siblings. But we're doing a different event now for 15 and up, so for teens and adults. And it's going to be less about providing respite for the parents, and it's going to be more about creating community for teens and adults with disabilities. And with our respite events, we match every guest up with a buddy. They have a lot of flexibility in what activities to participate in, but it's very it's like very organized and very everybody's matched up, everybody has a role. We want this to be more organic. It's going to include, like, guests and volunteers are going to eat together. The activities that we do are just going to be more like hang out, like more adult-ish hanging out kind of things. And really just provide an opportunity for community. And so that's happening later this month. So it'll be really interesting to see how that goes. So I can report back on that later, but I think there's a lot of really good models out there. 99 Balloons comes to mind, that are doing just kind of like creating community. So we're actually calling this event Crave, CRAVE, because what we have been hearing from parents and caregivers is that their teen and adult children, I mean, they're still their children, are craving community, that there just isn't, that there just aren't as many opportunities. And so we're really looking forward to it. And, I think it could be very transformational for our volunteers as well. So we're excited. All right, Allison. And Allison, do you see what I'm wearing?
I like it.
We both have kids at Ohio State. Oh, Al's giving us a thumbs down. He's a Michigan guy.
Kick them off, right? So you see, I'm the international one that's here in America, right? I was just going to say it's exciting to hear what you're doing, Beth, because I'm doing something similar. It's never quite on as big a scale as you, but just that's kind of how our respite program has now developed. For those of you that don't know me, I'm in southeast Pennsylvania, right on the Maryland-Delaware border. And I've also have a puppy playing with my big dog in the background, so apologize for inappropriate noises. But the same sort of thing, our 14+ group has sort of morphed into their own group and become a friendship group over the last 2 years. And I'm just looking at this summer for our respite program, where we're just doing little bite-sized respites, where the 14+ group will actually go and do something specific on their own, like a bowling event, like a karaoke night. They're going to help build an Eagle Scout pathway for our special needs playground. So just it's always good to sort of be encouraged by others doing something similar, because again, it's that building a community. And I've found it's a great opportunity for new volunteers in the church who want to be part of the special needs ministry but aren't quite sure. You can see me again. Aren't quite sure how to do that. It's been really encouraging to bring couples. You don't need to see me.
We can hear you, even though you keep flashing in and out. But
my computer has other plans. But the idea being that it's been great for couples to come into that space and work alongside each other and then get to know the kids. And so we've had some great times.
I love it. I love it. So in my mind, and this actually, as you were talking, this even kind of solidifies this further. I kind of want to start thinking small. We have done a lot of really big events, like back before COVID. I mean, our respite events were huge, where we were talking, it would take a couple hundred volunteers, and, we would cap it out at like 90 guests. And that's fabulous, but I do want to start thinking a little smaller. And I have more thoughts on that. And if you have not yet listened to last week's episode of Key Ministry, the podcast, it's episode 53. It's Sandra Peoples, and it's talking about ISPs, or individualized spiritual plans. That one, it really hit me, and I really want to spend more time focusing, like looking smaller and focusing at some of the people that we have. Still doing community outreach events, but so thank you. All right, well, you'll have to keep us posted. Okay, wait, yes, Catherine, 1 second. Tina shared in the chat that they do this, I think the teen and adult thing, the last Thursday of the month. It's been the best time, and they've become great friends. That's very cool. Thank you for sharing that, Tina. Catherine.
Hey, everybody. So Bible nerd here. So Zechariah 4:10 says, don't despise the day of small things. Jesus created the first official small group. And actually in my Sunday school class yesterday, I will not remember the stats, but it was basically that for people who get plugged into a small group, ability or disability, whatever, that, the chances that they become active in the church go up dramatically compared to people who do not. So thinking small is a really good approach to any ministry, and it can especially work in what we're doing as well.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. And oh yes, Julie.
The group that we started this discussion today about is, I love, Allison, what you're talking about, and Beth, what you're talking about, because this group has already been established in that regard in terms of, now these are more independent folks. They can come to the classroom pretty much on their own and leave on their own. There's a couple that need a little extra help. So they're a little bit more independent, but they are a friend group, and I love watching them as they interact with each other. Back when we had a different leader who was really committed to this group, she would invite them once a month to some public place, which was really good too, because then we're getting out in public and they can see, these wonderful people are wonderful people. Thank you. And so there would be bowling, and there would be, going to McDonald's, because one of the young men worked at McDonald's, and having his birthday party at that McDonald's where he worked, and different things. That's what community is. And they're I love the word crave too, because that is what they're craving. And it's been beautiful to watch. The hard part is, and I know y'all know this as ministry people, the ins and outs of leadership, and you get somebody that's really good with a particular group, and then they have to leave for whatever reason. And you just can't find that. You don't want to duplicate that much. You want to find somebody that's as committed. And we have had difficulty doing that, finding somebody else who is as committed. So that's a prayer item, I think, for all of us in terms of volunteers and people that want to jump on board. But thank you for what you're doing, Allison and Beth, because I think it's really cool.
Awesome. All right. Well, before we end, I know Catherine has some info to share. So Catherine, do you want to?
Sure. Yeah. So I think probably most of you guys know about this project, but in case you don't, we are collaborating with Fresh Hope for Mental Health. You can check them out at freshhope.us. We are actually launching some pilot small groups next month to go through curriculum that's designed for caregiving families that have disabilities and disabilities of every kind. So Fresh Hope has developed lots of different kinds of targeted curriculum, about the mental health challenges associated with particular, just particular life challenges, not just mental health challenges in general. But I think everybody on this call knows that, the caregiver life brings its own unique set of challenges. So we've been working on the curriculum. Several people on the call are going to be involved with this, but I just wanted you to kind of keep that in the back of your mind, because from the pilot groups this summer, we'll be, making changes and hopefully launching those official, initial Fresh Hope groups starting this fall. But, we'll definitely have more about this on our website, but and at some point this summer, we'll have a landing page for that. we don't have that yet, but just kind of keep that filed away for now, that will be another resource that hopefully can be really helpful for your families that you're serving in your churches.
Thank you. Yeah, and really just kudos to Catherine. She's put together a great team and has done a lot of work on this. So, so thank you for doing that and for sharing. All right, so here's the deal. We actually are not meeting next month because it's like 4th of July or 3rd of July or whatever, but so we will be back in business in August, the first Monday of August. So we'll have all kinds of stuff to share by then. So thank you all. We'll get this video and the links posted on our website, and we appreciate you. So thank you. Have a good one.